So, the year of 2024 has now come to a close. Wow, that was weeks ago by now. I don't even know if this type of list video is still relevant this time of year. Anywho, last year was a much more active collecting year for me than 2023 was. And I kinda loved it for that. Aside from some frustrating outliers, I really liked a lot of the acquisitions that came to my collection last year. On the official side of things, I'd say Legacy United is probably the best of the whole trilogy, wrapping it up with some banger new molds and a precedent set for many continuities to be represented in the next toy line. Dreamwave Megatron is my beloved. But unlike 2023, last year I didn't limit my collection to just chug figures. That's right, last year was when I dipped my toes into collecting third-party and masterpiece figures. Heck, even some non-Transformer related stuff. All in all, 2024 was a great year in my collecting journey. But which figures from it do I like the most? Well then. Greetings, people of YouTube. I'm Screaming Star, and today we will be looking at my top 15 favorite figures of 2024. But why a top 15? Some of you keyboard clackers might be wondering. To give you a definitive and empirical answer, I don't know. 15 just seems like the perfect amount. 20 is too many, 10 is too few, 15 it is. If you want to complain about that, I suggest you leave a comment on this video. Please guys, I crave that engagement. Okay, so to preface, the rules for which figures are eligible for this list are very simple. It must be a figure that I acquired in 2024, no matter whether it's released in said year or not. Yes, back collecting exists, sorry if that bothers you, but this is my list and I'll make it however I want. Speaking of, yes, despite the majority of my collection being Transformers figures, I will still include several non-Transformers on the list. The title says Figures of 2024, not Transformers of 2024. I hope you all understand. So, got anything to say before we start? Why are you doing this list so late into the new year? Nobody cares about it. You know that I will ignore the voices in my head. Let's just jump right into the list. Here are my top 15 favorite action figures that I acquired within the year of 2024. Okay, I did not expect the Transformers 1 mainline to go this hard. Aside from just being from a band, the figures in this line just look much livelier than those of the past media-adjacent mainlines, i.e. Earthspark and Rise of the Beasts. Probably partly due to the designs themselves being imbued with an array of vibrant colors. The crown jewel of this line for me would have to be the number 15 spot Prime Changers Deluxe Class Sentinel Prime. See, I told you he's a Deluxe of the Year contender. This thing is super dynamic with the amount of articulation that it has. Colors are lovely, the accessories are bright and plentiful, but the star of this show for me would have to be his transformation. It's such a fun fidget conversion that I could do over and over again. These days, with the advent of the Blockies figure and the upcoming Studio Series release, he isn't as relevant as he used to be. But my word, he still has a place in my heart. He's also the figure that I brought into the TF1 premiere, yippee! This one was kind of a dream come true for me. I'd been wanting Studio Series 102 since the day he got revealed. Unfortunately, the buzzworthy line decides to spit in my face and not ship him to my country at all, until he was reissued last year, wherein I see him in stores everywhere. Oh joy. But before that could happen, I just so happened to have taken a bite out of the SSKO market, with a decently diplomatic Sentinel and an extremely logical Shockwave, and now, here he is. Number 14 goes to the Byway knockoff of Studio Series 102. What a deal with this guy. You get the entire Optimus Prime figure with some improvements to his design, and all of these. You even get a Noah Diaz model kit, how wonderful. The figure itself is awesome with an updated paint job that looks a lot more pristine than the original. The only thing preventing me from putting him higher on the list is the fact that my friend Anything Gamer had his copy contracted with a double dose of Dr. Moon syndrome. The figure is great, but the longevity could be better. Voyager class had been rather hit or miss last year, starting off with probably two of my least favorite United figures, and continuing with a string of good but only good releases. That is why I am so happy to put the Studio Series Gamer Edition Ratchet at the number 13 spot. Hands down my favorite Voyager class figure of last year, and probably my favorite Gamer Edition release so far. This is a figure that favors engineering and play value above all else. Any compromise he has in any mode is forgiven when I experience the light token version. Legitimately, the transformation alone is enough to give him a spot on this list. It's really clever with its parts usage. But then the really fun robot mode and endlessly charming vehicle mode fully cements it as being one of my favorite figures of 2024. Last year was when I realized that non-transforming Transformers are actually pretty awesome, especially those from YOLO Park and Blockies. The latter hit especially hard with the Transformers 1 offerings. Prime and Sentinel looked gorgeous for being as small and as cheap as they are. However, my Prime has QC issues, while Sentinel is definitely more display-oriented as opposed to being a fun toy. That is why, at the number 12 spot, I'm giving it to the Blockies Classic Class Transformers 1 Megatron. What a fantastic character in the movie, represented by this resplendent piece of plastic perfection. The entire figure has a slight shiny finish to it that makes him look very vibrant despite the predominantly gray color scheme. Also, light up eyes for something that costs less than a deluxe? Yes please! But those aren't the main reasons why he takes the spot. No. That would be just the fact of how solid he feels. Hands down, one of the most fun fidget toys I got last year. And it doesn't even transform. To me, that's the sign that you've made a successfully fun toy. Before I got into Transformers, I was mostly a fan of dinosaur figures, usually either realistic statues or something from the Jurassic World branding. Weirdly though, I was always kind of into having articulation with my figures, which is why Mattel's Hammond collection line is a practically perfect line for me. As I've mentioned in one of my reviews though, they don't get shipped here that often, and that's kind of sad, at least to me in particular. So when I saw this lovely lass on store shelves, I realized that I could not pass her up. And oh my word, was I right to think so. At the number 11 spot, we have the Jurassic World Hammond Collection Therizinosaurus. This figure hits all the right spots for me. It's well detailed, it's a representation of a dinosaur that I adore, it's incredibly satisfying when it comes to its size, and most of all, it has amazing articulation. I mean, where else are you gonna see a dinosaur figure this size doing the superhero landing, Safe to say, I am very pleased to have this figure, and she fully deserves to be in my top 15 list. Hiya Toys is a very highly regarded company within the Godzilla community. I mean, I don't see why not. They put out good products that cost about half as much as their pricier adversaries, which is why it should be no surprise to see that the Hiya Toys Energized Godzilla is not at the number 10 spot? Yeah, believe it or not, very nearing the end of last year, I got what I consider to be my new favorite Hiya Toys figure, the exquisite basic Godzilla vs. Kong Skullcrawler. To explain why I prefer this to Energized Goji is no simple task, and probably requires a full review on its own. So for this video, let me just say that the Skullcrawler design has always been one that captivated me, and to have a figure representation of it that's this detailed, this solid, and most importantly, this posable, that's a dream item come true for me. He may have been just cannon fodder in the movie, but the figure of him leaves a huge impression on me in a very good way. More heresy time! YOLO Park is another non-transforming company that's been absolutely killing it with their releases last year, with some spectacular looking pieces that I sadly don't own. I'll get you one day, my love. And their TF1 figures were really good too, especially Alita and Orion. But there is another version of that character that takes up this spot on the list. That's right, at the number 9 spot we have the YOLO Park AMK Pro G1 Optimus Prime. To some, the existence of this figure may seem stupid, but personally, I don't care what they say, because when I behold this figure in all his shining glory, I realize that he's just the best G1 Optimus for my collection when I take budgets into account at least. Sure, he can't transform, but I still think he looks great with his spectacular metallic paint job and his dynamic posing. Their G1 Megatron was also really good, but sadly his solidity left a bit to be desired. None of that applies to Optimus though. He is easily the best feeling YOLO Park kit I've handled so far. Yet another reason why he earns this spot on my list. Finally, back to Chug we go. This entry was a figure that, when it was first revealed, generated a lot of mixed reactions. Even after release, sure, I did like it, but I didn't really think much of it. It's only the more that I've handled him over time that I realized just how much the Transformers Legacy United Deluxe Class Animated Universe Bumblebee deserves the number 8 spot on this list. This figure is just fun. The articulation in robot mode is so good for a figure of this size. I mean, he even has a deep ab crunch thanks to the oh so satisfying transformation transformation, which is another reason why he earns this spot. This figure to me is the embodiment of fun factor over accuracy. Yeah, I know a lot of animated fans aren't pleased with the way he looks, but as a figure on his own, he just fills me with joy every time I handle him with my pale grabby hands. Good job, kiddo. I am indeed impressed. Bring it on, Age of the Primes. Give me that fugitive Waspinator. Iron Factory's Breast Force has been a really fun set to collect. They're really expressive and fun to handle despite their small size, especially Leozak. But what if I tell you that there is a combiner team on the horizon with a similar aesthetic that has a potential to dethrone Iron Factory's outing? It all begins with the number 7 entry. Craftsman Toys Steel Drill, also known as Nose Cone. This figure blew me away when I first got him, and still does to this day. The plastic quality feels incredible, and if anything, feels almost as good as hashtag plastic, believe it or not. Not only that, his transformation is uber satisfying, and it's one that I cannot stop repeating back and forth. Oh, and do I need to remind you that this thing is a combiner limb? There will be more of these guys to come. And judging from this release alone, Craftsman Toys have grabbed my wallet by the balls. I salute you, new third-party company I've never heard of before. I hope you'll keep up your streak of fantastic figures in the future. Yes, a review for him is imminent, and let me just say I cannot wait to gush over him in greater detail. 2024 was a fantastic year for deluxe class Transformers. I mean, I've already covered 2 of them on this list, so that should tell you something about how I feel regarding their quality. However, no deluxe class figure from last year had managed to embed itself within my heart quite like the number 6 entry, Legacy United Deluxe Class Infernac Universe Shard. It still saddens me that I haven't gotten the chance to review this figure, and by now it's probably a bit too late. But damn it, man! I just love this figure from the bottom of my heart. For starters, she's wearing my favorite color, and the design overall is just plain awesome, with a healthy hint of throwback to the original U1 cartoon to make it extra spicy. Her transformation is simple and fun, her alt mode is one banger of a helicopter, but what gets me more than anything is the creativity that's found within her in regards to her armorizer gimmick. This figure sparks the imagination in me almost like no other. Well, funnily enough, except for the next entry on this list, but I'll obviously talk about that later. And for that reason, combined with the previous reasons, earns her this high of a spot within my top 15 list. Getting into the real meat and potatoes, now I'm starting off my top 5 with a rather controversial release. Even then, I still have no shame in saying that he is my favorite Chug figure that was released in 2024. The Studio Series Bumblebee lineup has been a treat, giving us probably the best RC figure they've ever made, and a stellar main Decepticon team. Of the 4 main Decepticons, their leader remains as my favorite. Yep, folks, I'm giving the number 5 spot to the Transformers Studio Series Leader Class Bumblebee Movie Concept Art Megatron. What a talking point. People either love this thing like he directed Transformers 1, or hate him so much that spending a ticket to the mid-Fossa movie seems like a better investment to them. For me though, I have been loving the shit out of him. For a more elaborate reasoning, you can check out my review of him, but to sum it up, this figure is extremely fun to pose. Sure, the alt modes aren't the best, but I still kinda dig them, at least the tank mode, and the transformation itself is a decently satisfying process, the engineering of which could be crafted into a multitude of interesting fan modes. I understand why people have a distaste for him, but to me, he is my prideful son that I will love till the end of days. This one requires no introduction. Iron Factory Kagemusha Boumaru aka Shattered Glass Grimlock is pure, unadulterated badassery. I really can't comment much on him since I've already said what's needed to be said in my review for this guy. He looks awesome, he feels awesome, the transformation is awesome, the dino mode is awesome, the stylization is awesome. How many more times do I have to say the word awesome before I convince you that this figure is just that? Unfortunately, I've heard reports that as a whole, Iron Factory's Samurai series is pretty mid, but Grimlock over here stands as a shining example of how the concept could and should be done right. Grimlock, despite you being the evil Shattered Glass version, I will say that you are a good Dinobot regardless. The third-party G1 Masterpiece niche is a hard one for me to dip my toes into. Not only do all of the figures look kinda samey and dull, they're just stupidly expensive a lot of the times, particularly when we're talking about fans toys, those pompous asses. That being said, I did pick up one 3P G1 Masterpiece figure last year, one that I'd actually been wanting for quite a while, and oh boy did it not disappoint. Magic Square's Light of Peace aka Optimus Prime was a figure that looked really cool to me, so when they repainted him in this very sexy Shattered Glass color, color scheme, I had to give it a chance. Well, look where he is now. The number 3 spot goes to Magic Square Mirror Commander, also known as Shattered Glass Optimus Prime. This figure is just plain lovely. The G1 toon styling is up my alley, and has the insanely expressive articulation to boot. But what I like the most about this guy is that he is just fun to transform. Not what I expected, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. Again, if you like more elaboration, I recommend just checking out my review for him. At this point in time, I've already pre-ordered my hopefully next Masterpiece G1 figure, that being the DX9 Sideswipe. And judging by this transformation video, I can only hope for him to be in the same vein as this precious purple perfection. This entry means so much to me. Probably even more than you could imagine. As a Transformers fan introduced to the franchise primarily by watching people like Jobby the Hong, yes, the similarity in style is no coincidence, I've always considered the third-party Masterpiece market in general to be a long-range dream. Of course, I would never be able to afford these amazing-looking collector-grade items. I didn't even know if they'd ship to my country or not. Then, one fateful night, a friend that I just met introduced me to this one store that just so happened to possess a stock of a figure that I desired for a while. It was on pre-order, so the cost would be split between then and when the figure was nearing its release. With every fiber of my being, I asked my mother if she could purchase it for me. The effects of that day still live on in my mind as we speak. For that reason alone, Metagate G05 Red Fantasy, also known as Bumblebee Movie Shatter, would have easily made it onto the number 2 spot. But beyond the experience I had prior to owning her, the figure itself just left me speechless. The robot mode looks amazing. Screen accuracy aside, it's just an incredibly well-designed and well-articulated action figure. And don't even get me started on the engineering. A few weeks ago, I was considering putting her at the number 3 spot, but after I transformed her again for the purposes of getting footage for this video, oh my word, does she deserve the number 2 spot. The transformation is brilliant. Sure, it's complex, but it's never frustrating. Every part is a well-defined chunk with a clear place to go. And once you're done with the process, the modes that you get from it are not perfect, but are still completely satisfactory. For the existence of this figure within my possession, I cannot thank my mother enough. And the friend who introduced me to the store as well. I still buy from that store to this very day. The third-party name for this figure is completely appropriate. Red Fantasy. Yes, that was what my life felt like the moment I held this figure in my hands. A fantasy. I cannot stress enough that 2024 was a fantastic year for my collection. As a result, not every figure I adore can be put on this list. As such, before getting into the number 1 spot, let's go through the somewhat lengthy list of honorable mentions, not including some that I've already mentioned in previous entries. Yolo Park Scourge, the perfect Scourge for my collection. His posability is great, and he uses his accuracy to his advantage. Gear Factory Wheeljack. Of all the Transformers Prime figures I got last year, this is easily the best one with his excellent posing and fun conversion process. Studio Series 86 Swoop. If it weren't for his loose hips and ankles, he might have had a chance to enter this list proper. But alas, he's still a pretty good purchase. Studio Series Optimus Primal. Wanted this one for a while, and I'm glad to finally have it. Great figure, I just prefer the actual list entries. Blocky's Rise of the Beasts RC. The figure that got me into Blockies and still holds up among some of the recent releases. Speaking of, Blockies Bayverse Optimus Prime. This one is a real treat. It brings to life this awesome design in a neat and concise package. On the topic of Blockies Optimi, Blockies Action Edition Optimus. Fun as hell to build, and the result is a really satisfying figure to pose. Nearing the end now, we got Bumblebee Movie Shockwave. Had he been given bicep swivels, he would have easily made it onto the list, as his details are amazing and the transformation is surprisingly fun. Legacy United Metal Hawk. A very solid Voyager, only being brought down by his bad knee design. Finally, for the honorable mentions, we have Buzzworthy Bumblebee Silver Streak. I'm telling you, if this were a top 16 list, this thing would have absolutely made it. I was really taken back by just how fun he was to pose and transform. The Earthrise Datsun mold is highly regarded for a reason, and after handling him, I know exactly what it is. Coincidentally, my feeling towards the number 1 entry kind of fell in line with that statement. And to be completely honest, said number 1 entry really shouldn't be surprising to anyone who watched my older videos. Specifically, my previous video. Yep, That's correct. Call me cliche, call me derivative, all you want, but I genuinely don't care. Transformers Legacy Evolution Commander Class Armada Universe Optimus Prime is my favorite figure that I got in 2024, despite not being a 2024 figure in itself. The review I'd released prior to this video was specifically made to flesh out my opinions on him. It was specifically made to aid with this video, because I honestly just cannot describe this figure with a mere short paragraph. And I mean, now, what do I really need to say? Yes, his play options are endless. Yes, his posability is really well done. Yes, the transformation is fun. Yes, this figure is just that damn well made. Again, if you want to see more well-versed opinions about this figure, I highly suggest checking out my review for him, because in my opinion, this figure is just too good to be put into words. And it is currently one of, if not my favorite figure in my collection. So, there you have it, a list of my top 15 favorite figures that I acquired within the year of 2024. To elaborate, it was certainly a great year for my collection. Tons of heavy hitters from hashtag and third party, from Transformers and non-Transformers. I had one hell of a blast last year. If there are any entries on this list that you disagree with, it's completely fine, as opinions will differ from one person to another. You can share your top of the year list in the comments below. I'll most likely read it. As of now, 2025 looks to be another banger year for Transformers collecting. I mean, we got the Age of the Primes line, every entry of which so far have impressed me by how they look, and we got lots of third-party stuff to look forward to as well, including that DX9 Sideswipe that I pre-ordered. Whatever collecting news that the new year will bring onto the table, I'll be sure to embrace it with open arms. With all of that being said, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who watched this video. What did you think of it? If you enjoyed it, leave a like, got something to say, leave a comment, and if you like my channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Very well, fellas, I'll hopefully see you all next time. In regards to what my next review will be, well, here's a leg up on that. You have no idea how much I wanted to talk about this thing.